home alone, and Janwo's mother left a letter saying that his mother was in a hurry to leave, and Janwo's mother asked Janwo to go shopping for his own food needs. Video games with his friends. And while they were playing, Janwo's friend told him that currently the television station was reporting about strange incidents regarding people turning into zombies. Hearing this, Janwo then went to see the incident on television, but when the television was turned on, suddenly there was no signal, and on his cell phone, Janwo also received an emergency notification from the government. And immediately Janwo then looked from the balcony of his house, and at that time Janwo saw people there running to avoid attacks from people who had become zombies. And from the balcony of his apartment, Janwo also saw a child calling his mother, and when they hugged, the child turned into a zombie and then bit his mother to death. Meanwhile, a fire engine was seen passing by, but at that time the fire engine hit a car there, causing an explosion. A few moments later, Janwo heard the sound of people screaming in front of his apartment door, and at that time Janwo didn't see anyone in front of his apartment door. However, when Janwo opened the door, Janwo's apartment neighbor suddenly came in and asked Janwo for help so that he could stay in Janwo's apartment because the conditions outside their apartment were currently chaotic. And Janwo, who didn't recognize his neighbor, Janwo then asked his neighbor to get out of his apartment right now. And because Janwo kicked him out, Janwo's neighbor said at that time he was going to the toilet, and after that he left Janwo's apartment. While his neighbor was in the toilet, Janwo received information from television that the current incident was an incident caused by an infection that made people very brutal, and the infection was caused by cannibalistic behavior which was transmitted through bites. After hearing this information, Janwo then noticed something strange about his neighbor, and immediately Janwo took a knife to chase his neighbor away. And a few moments later, his neighbor turned into a zombie and then attacked Janwo. At that time, Janwo pushed him out of his apartment, and fortunately Janwo was not bitten by the zombie. And after that incident, Janwo tried to contact his parents, but at that time the signal on his cell phone was experiencing problems. And a few moments later, Janwo got a message from his mother to tell Janwo to stay at home, and don't open the door to just anyone. That night, Janwo tried to strengthen himself by writing "I must survive," and pasting the writing on his family photo. And after that, Janwo saw that his food supply was only enough for a few days, and at that time Janwo regretted not having listened to his mother when she told him to shop for food. The next day, Janwo took a photo of himself and then posted the photo to his social media account to get help. And after that, Janwo saw television with news about the increasingly emergency situation in his city. To get rid of his fear a little, Janwo played video games, and while he was playing the video game the internet signal at his house was cut off, and Janwo went to sleep. A few moments later, Janwo woke up from his sleep, and at that time Janwo heard the sound of gunshots coming from outside his apartment. Janwo immediately looked outside, and it turned out that a female police officer was shooting at the zombies and struggling to escape from the zombies there. And because the bullets for the gun ran out, the policewoman couldn't save herself, and immediately the policewoman was bitten by the zombies, and at that time Janwo could only scream so that the zombies wouldn't bite the policewoman, but Janwo's screams didn't work, and the zombies continued to eat the policewoman. And because Janwo shouted, the zombies in front of his apartment came and broke down the door to Janwo's apartment, which had been blocked with a refrigerator. And at that time, Janwo distracted the zombie by jumping from the balcony and hanging on the balcony railing, and meanwhile, the zombie chased Janwo until he fell from the balcony of Janwo's apartment. And at that moment Janwo saw that the female police officer had turned into a zombie. And because the door was broken open by the zombies, the food supplies in Janwo's refrigerator spilled onto the floor and became dirty. The next day, Janwo saw television with an advertisement of people eating ramen noodles, and at that time Janwo was drooling over the advertisement, and made him take and eat the last stock of food he had saved. On the 15th day, Janwo tried to entertain himself by listening to music while swaying, And a few moments later, Janwo saw his parents coming home, and at that time Janwo immediately hugged his mother tightly, and it turned out that it was just Janwo's illusion. And when Janwo realized that it was just his illusion, Janwo immediately started crying. And a few moments later, Janwo's parents called, and because his cell phone signal at that time was not very good, Janwo then stepped out of his apartment balcony a little to get a signal, and after getting a signal, Janwo's mother said that their current condition was fine. But a few moments later, Janwo heard his mother's voice asking for help, and it seemed like Janwo's parents there had been bitten by zombies. And after that, Janwo looked sad because his parents had been bitten by zombies, and Janwo immediately vented his frustration by hitting the zombies in front of him. But a few moments later, the zombies came, and because there were quite a lot of them, Janwo hid and decided to return to his apartment again. On the 20th day, Janwo seemed to have given up hope, because Janwo saw that the conditions around him were getting worse, and at that time Janwo decided to end his life. And when Janwo was about to end his life, from the front window of his apartment, Janwo saw a laser light, and at that time Janwo, thinking that at this time there was still someone alive besides him, and Janwo decided not to end his life. And Janwo then looked at his apartment window, and Janwo saw a woman named Kim Iobin, who was looking at his apartment, and at that time Kim Iobin asked them to meet again tomorrow at 7 a.m. Meanwhile, Kim Iobin's apartment is seen having prepared a trap to avoid attacks by zombies who want to enter his apartment. The next day, Janwo was late waking up from his sleep, and at that time Janwo apologized to Kim Iobin because he couldn't keep his promise to meet at 7 in the morning. And at that time they became acquainted, and a few moments later, Kim Iobin entered his apartment, because the trap made by Kim Iobin was hit by a zombie, and at that time Kim Iobin hit the zombie. After that, Kim Iobin saw that Janwo was hungry. Kim Iobin tried to throw a ball that he had tied with a rope, and Kim Iobin did that so he could send food to Janwo. But unfortunately the ball thrown by Kim Iobin at that time did not reach Janwo's apartment, and the ball fell downstairs. Seeing that Kim Iobin was unable to throw the ball, Janwo used his drone to bring a rope to Kim Iobin's apartment. And finally Kim Iobin was able to send food to Janwo using the rope. While Janwo was eating, Janwo saw a zombie firefighter who was about to climb into Kim Iobin's apartment using a rope that Kim Iobin had previously thrown, and Kim Iobin was about to cut the rope from his table, but Kim Iobin immediately hit the table, making Kim Iobin faint. Janwo saw that the zombie had gone up. Janwo then used his drone to distract the zombie, but the zombie caught Janwo's drone, so Janwo couldn't do anything else. And luckily, Kim Iobin woke up from his fainting, and Kim Iobin then hit the zombie until it fell from his apartment. In the evening, because the food supply had run out, Janwo decided to go out and look for food in his neighbor's apartment. And while at his neighbor's apartment, Janwo got a lot of food to stock up